What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with a vintage Star Wars mint on card market update. I even got a couple of graded mini rigs to cover. Just looking at this thumbnail, we've got a 31 back A Death Star droid offerless ESB card. That is extremely rare, and when I had my what to buy video, that did sell. We have a mint on card graded Imperial Commander Ledy. And wow, that is an awesome looking item. That's something I would love to have in my collection one day. Lots of different Trilogos also sold at auction that were some pretty incredible prices, including this Luke Farm Boy with the alternate gunner card, as well as some 20 and 21 backs. So, as always, thanks to my Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/actionfiguregrader is where you can go to sign up. And I need to say thank you to two new Patreon supporters, Peter V and Untitled Collector. Thank you guys so much for joining the Patreon ranks. Let's go ahead and dig right in to some incredible sales here. And the first one we've got is a 20 back E Luke Skywalker Farm Boy. And there was a lot of edge wear to the card, which, can happen with some of these 40-plus-year-old card backs. Lots of edge wear all the way around. Probably a 75 grade would be my guess in terms of the grade on this one, and even that might be a little bit high, but the blister was crystal clear. Figure was in great shape. It's just the card back had some kind of minor wave to it and some edge wear. Unpunched, no price sticker. That one sold in an auction for 1,181 pounds, which is almost 1,500 US dollars. And quite honestly, given what early card backs for Luke Farm Boys go for, I don't think that's a terrible deal. I think that's probably right in line with market, just given the condition issues of it. I think a high grade one, kind of AFA 85, would probably set you back closer to $2,000. So I think that price was pretty fair, if not higher than $2,000 nowadays. Here was a nice looking 21 back A punched example for the Death Star droid. This one was probably in a little better condition, although in the upper right hand corner you can see a color breaking crease there. A lot of wave to the card back, some minor edge wear at the top on the left as well. There's also a crease on the left hand side that is not too color breaking, but it is noticeable. Probably again a 75 grade, maybe a 75 plus grade. Blister and the figure were both in great shape, though. This one also sold in an auction, same seller, I believe, for 620 pounds, which is 771 US dollars. That's kind of up a little bit. We've documented a few examples that I found from old videos that were kind of in the 600 to 650 range. For a similar condition. Death Star droid, 21 back A's. 21A Death Star droids are pretty easy to find. The 21 back B is the one that's a little bit tougher, in my opinion. That one doesn't seem to show up as much. The 20 backs with either the free secret Star Wars action figure offer or the Boba Fett offer, those go for a little bit more money. But for an offerless 21 back A in this condition, 771 might be a tad high, but I don't think it's out of the realm of what the market value is. Here is that 31 back Death Star droid that was available in a buy it now situation that I featured in my last what to buy video. And I was like, hey, look, this is rare. This is really tough to find. It did finally sell after a couple of days. The card score was a 70, blister 75, figure 85. The blister and the figure were in great shape. It just had some kind of creasing up by the hang tabs there, as you can see right there. But it was no price sticker, and it was unpunched. And I can tell you that for even higher grade examples, they usually set you back $1,000 plus. This one was listed for $800. I didn't look up what the best offer accepted was, but I did receive an offer from this seller for $750, so I'm assuming right around $750 for that one. Next up was a 41 back ESB Stormtrooper mint on card. This one did have some yellowing to the blister, and it did have some sticker residue in the upper right hand corner, but a pretty gorgeous unpunched card. It's just some very minor yellowing to the blister that probably held this one back, but probably a yellow to 80 would be my guess. You can see on the back of the card the little S stamp below the proof of purchase. That signifies that this was made in the Smile factory in Hong Kong. But pretty nice looking offerless 41 back Stormtrooper. That one sold in an auction as well for $459. I think that if this would have been a clear blister in the exact same condition, it probably would have been $650 plus, would be my guess. So I think that price was appropriately discounted. Next up, we're going to dig into some beautiful Trilogos. There were a ton that sold, and this is not the same seller that we're going to dig into in a second that had like 8 or 9 all at auction. But this one was available and was in pretty great shape. The Darth Vader Dark Vador This is one I did pick up this year, and this was in pretty similar condition, I would say, to the one I picked up. Although the blister on mine was maybe slightly better, but not much better. This has the etched edges, as you can see there. There's little grooves in the upper left, right, and on the bottom. That was a factory thing, so those are not dents. These little grooves right here are not dents. This is a little dent right here, though. So I would say this is probably about an 80 grade, which is what mine graded for. You can see again down here the etched edges on the blister, but pretty good looking example of the Dark Vador Trilogo, and it sold in an auction for $486. $486 is a great deal, let me tell you, because I paid a lot more for mine. I think I paid about 100 pounds more for mine ungraded. So somebody got a pretty good deal on this one. I think that was a pretty good pickup. Now here's the other seller. I've never dealt with this seller before, but he or she seemed to have positive feedback. 888 transactions on eBay. And this seller had also a Darth Vader. This one sold for $432 US or 400 euros. That compares to this one that's sold for 391 pounds or 486 US dollars. So this one went a little bit less, and I would say that this one was not in as good a condition. It had some edge wear as well as some sticker residue in the upper right-hand corner. Probably a slight step down in terms of condition. This is probably like a 75 grade. But, you know, between $400 and $500, if you can pick up a nice condition Dark Vador, Darth Vader Trilogo for that price, you're doing really well. Because let me tell you, I paid a lot more than that on Facebook, and I think that was a really good pickup. He also had the Lobot. The Lobot did have some condition issues, mainly on the blister in the upper left-hand corner, as you can see. Again, another punched example with a lot of edge wear. This one sold for 236 euros, which is $254. That's a pretty good buy. Usually in buy it now situations for the Lobot Trilogo, people are usually asking $400 plus, US dollars plus. So, you know, again, it wasn't perfect. You can see the big ding there in the upper left-hand corner of the blister. So it's not perfect, but for $250, that's a pretty good buy in my mind. Next up was the Lando Skiff Guard. This one had some big condition issues with the blister, so probably at best a 70 plus condition, and that one sold for $157, $157 US. I think that, again, that's a pretty fair price for an unpunched example as well. The card was similar condition. All of these pretty much had edge wear around the cards or bigger issues. So again, I'd call this one like a 70 grade for $157. Next up was the Ben Kenobi, same seller. Blister had some minor dings to it, and the card had some sticker residue. It was a punched example. Again, light edge wear all the way around the card. On the back of the card, you can see some wear around the hang tab as well as a color breaking crease in the upper right. So again, you know, none of these were particularly perfect except for maybe one that was in really great shape that I'll show you in a second. But this one did sell for 406 euros, which is 438 US dollars. Next up was the Sensor Scope R2-D2. This is one I do have coming here very soon that I paid for about 5 months ago, and the seller didn't want to ship it. And I think he's coming for a convention here in town, so I hope to pick it up then. But he says he may not come, so we're going to have to risk shipping it. But the Sensor Scope R2-D2, it looks like it might have some very light yellowing to the blister on the edges there, and you know, kind of creases and things like that. Again, probably about a 70 grade given the blister issues and the light card issues. That one sold for 416 euros, which is 448 US dollars. Maybe a little high would be my opinion on this one. Mine is graded straight 85s with CAS, and while I did pay quite a bit more for it, it was obviously in pretty pristine condition. But I think this is a nice looking figure. I'm not trying to say it was a terrible overpay, but relative to the one I bought, I was expecting this one to go for kind of 300 US dollars, maybe 350. Next up is the one that I was mentioning that was probably in the best shape of all the ones that he had. Maybe not, I don't know. Again, light edge wear issues, but the Stormtrooper, you know, now that I look at it a little bit more, that bottom blister is pretty rough on the lower left-hand corner especially. So probably a 75 at best. Here's the back of the card, pretty good shape. It's just that blister in the lower left and upper left that had some issues. I would guess a 75 grade for this. But the Stormtrooper on the Trilogo card back is surprisingly expensive. It's not one that goes cheap. High grade examples can set you back closer to $1,000 US. This one sold for 655 euros, which is $700. But again, for better grade, AFA 80 kind of condition or better, I've seen them sell very regularly for $900 to $1,200. So probably appropriately discounted. The Chewbacca, I would actually, now that I look at it, the Chewbacca is probably in the best condition out of all these in the lot, although there are some more expensive ones coming in a second. But this Trilogo, again, has the etched style edges to the blister. Pretty nice looking example overall, just some light creasing by the name pill. It was a punched example, but pretty good shape. I think this would score an 80 pretty easily with one of the grading companies. That one sold for 505 euros, which is 544 US dollars. Again, Chewbacca with the alternate card image is pretty expensive usually. Next up was the Yoda. Interesting on the Yoda is that the snake had broken in half inside the blister, and it also is a yellow blister, which is a common occurrence with the Trilogo Yoda. But this one did have some very heavy creasing in the upper left-hand corner, as well as above the hang tab. Lots of edge wear to it. That's still sold, though, for 350 euros, which is exactly the price I paid that scored for my example, exact same card back, but mine graded an 80 with CAS. So, again, that was about a year and a half ago, though, so you can see how much that one has moved up for one that is in not nearly as good a condition for the exact same price that I paid for mine. Next up was the Han Solo, always a very expensive Trilogo. The blister on this one looks like it might have some light yellowing to it, very faint though. Light edge wear again around the card back, at best probably a 70 grade, maybe a 75 if you're feeling generous though. But I think with the damage to the blister and the sticker residue, things like that, probably a 70 grade. But it's still sold for 855 euros, so very pricey for Han Solo First 12. 922 US dollars. That's a big number. The biggest one is this one, though. This is the Luke Farm Boy with the no COO light brown haired version, Luke inside, and it's obviously the alternate image gunner card for Luke, and this is definitely one that everyone wants, and of course the price reflected that. It sold for 2,160 euros, which is a little over 2,300 US dollars. So that one was the creme de la creme of that batch that this seller had. But really interesting to see what the sales prices would be for these, because none of them were perfect. Some of them were in better condition than others, and there were also obviously ones like this one and the Han Solo that are pretty high demand. So I was curious to see how those prices finished up. But that one is a gem, though. That alternate Luke Gunner card is certainly desirable. Next up is the famous Ledy, and this is tough to find, and you don't find these Ledy's mint on card AFA graded very much at auction on eBay. This one was graded 75. The subscores were 70, 80, 80. So two high subscores brought the overall score to a 75. Crystal clear blister, punched example with some obvious wear around the hang tab, and the main culprit for why this one got the 70 grade for the card score. That's still sold for $2,422 plus $25 shipping. An absolute gem of a foreign card back, and I just love the Ledy logo down there in the lower right-hand corner on these. It just really pops, kind of like a must-have, if you will, for, if you collect foreign variants. I'm not saying you got to get a mint on card Ledy if you're a must-have collector for foreign stuff, but what I did to kind of keep my budget in check is I picked up a lot of loose, just the straight card backs, and then I loose graded the figure in front of the card back. So I've got 6 of those in my collection, but maybe one day I'll get a mint on card example of a Ledy, but it certainly was not going to happen today. I'm pretty much broke right now. $24.22 for that one, though. It's a gorgeous example. And then finally, we got 2 mini rigs that were both very high grade that sold, and the prices were pretty shocking, to be honest with you. The ISP-6, which is a Return of the Jedi only mini rig, obviously this did not appear for the Empire Strikes Back packaging, but this ISP is surprisingly expensive. It's one of the more expensive mini rigs out there, probably because they were only produced on the Return of the Jedi packaging. A lot of these mini rigs, like the tripod laser cannon and some of those other mini rigs, they were available on both the ESB as well as the Return of the Jedi packaging. But this one was graded AFA 85, mint and sealed box, and it sold for $800. That was way higher than I was expecting. I thought maybe at the upper end it was probably going to sell for around $600. Now it is an AFA 85, so I probably did not have my expectations in check with reality. But anytime you get an AFA 85, you're going to be paying a significant multiple versus what an AFA 80 would sell for example. I think an AFA 80 would sell for half this price or less. But $800 took that one home plus $20 shipping. And then the same seller had the AST5, another Return of the Jedi only packaged item, I believe. This one again was graded AFA 85, so big money on this one as well. $560 on 21 bids plus $20 shipping. So almost $600 before eBay state sales taxes. So both of those, again, when you get the AFA 85s, you're going to be paying big money for them, and both of those reflect the market demand for those very, very high grade near mint plus mini rigs that have been graded by AFA. So anyway, I hope you found this information useful. Thank you as always for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Thanks again, and I'll be back soon.